Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is episode 76, and today we are talking about planting seeds in your writing, making every detail count. My name is Donna Carbone, and I'm joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope. How are you?
I'm great, Donna. How are you?
Fantastic. Loving summer. It's beautiful outside.
It is beautiful, but it is very hot where I am. So,
well, you know what? We're preparing for a heat wave here right now. It's not here yet, though.
My car today said 102. Now, my car was sitting, but it's really in the high 90s. So, but again, I love summer. When else can you wear swimsuits and get to hang out by the pool? So I do love my summers.
What's your favorite temperature?
Favorite temperature, 75.
Yeah.
With no humidity. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, mine's that
not
too.
hot, you're not cold.
Yeah, same. We're a lot alike.
We are. We're a lot alike. So,
what are you reading these days?
So I went on a family trip to Mexico to celebrate my daughter's graduation. She just moved out. So I am now officially an official empty nester. I feel like all I've done.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like all I've done is move. As you guys can see now, I'm in a completely different background. I am now in my office.
No longer a cloffice.
No longer a cloffice. I'm in an office. So with my favorite little painting, I'll tell you that at a later date. But we went to Mexico, and I never pick up hardbacks because they're expensive to begin with, and they're kind of big. But on a beach, I don't like to read on my phone. So I picked up what everybody's talking about yesteryear. And it is by is it Caro Claire Burke? It's like the biggest book of the year, really it is. And when I saw this on Instagram about 6 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, and I heard that it was a trad wife, which for those of you who don't know, trad wife, it's a traditional wife. These are women that are young, and they really kind of preach the virtues of living more simplistic, like, back in the olden days, like in the 1800s, they make their bread from scratch. They do all this. Well, that's what this is. It's a trad wife influencer on Instagram. And she, preaches the virtues of, doing it the old way. And then one morning she wakes up and she's literally in the 1800s. And I have to say, when I heard that concept, it was one of those moments I wanted to kick myself as a writer that I could not come up with something so clever. I think out of all the books I've read in a long time, that has the best, what we would call, not tagline, your hook, I just thought pitch. It was the best pitch. And it's interesting. It goes in a lot of different ways. And I was really surprised about the reviews. It's either people love this book or they hate this book. There's no like middle ground on, it's a good book, or people are one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I'm
dying to read it.
It's interesting. I should mail you my copy.
Yeah.
So what about you? What are you reading?
So I'm reading a book that is a read again for me. I'm reading The Other Boleyn Girl. And the reason I'm doing that is, although I've retired, which I've mentioned, I am going back and teaching 2 British literature classes next year at the school where I formerly taught full-time. And so that's our summer reading. But I'm also really excited to reread it because Philippa Gregory came out with another in the Tudor series, and it's called The Boleyn Traitor, and it's about Jane Boleyn, George's wife, who really betrayed the three Boleyn siblings, which is what led to two of their deaths. So I'm excited to read that too.
Have you watched that show, The Tudors? It's very old. I think it's
Yeah.
been out for like 15 years, but
Yeah, I watched The Tudors. I watched the adaptation. I actually saw Philippa Gregory give a book talk about the White Queen, which is later on in the
yeah.
series. But at that time, they were filming the adaptation for the other Boleyn girl. So she talked about that as well. It was fascinating.
Wow. I need to check that book out.
Oh,
That
so good, Hope.
that
I
whole
loved it.
that whole era is so fascinating to me, and so yeah, I definitely need to check that one out.
Yeah, there's not a lot of books that I really like reading again, but I've read this book several times.
Oh, okay.
And I
Well, you
always
know
find
me,
little nuggets that
yeah.
are new.
Well, that's me in Age of Innocence. I
Yeah.
read that probably once every year, once every 2 years. It's just, I like to rewatch movies too, so I do like to reread books.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So, well, let's talk about this episode.
Sure.
So, today we are talking about planting seeds in your writing, making every detail count. The most satisfying stories don't come from surprises that appear out of nowhere. They come from details that were there all along. And today we're going to explore how writers can strategically plant information, objects, emotions, and clues early in the story that bloom into a meaningful revelations, twist, and character growth. So
Yeah.
I have to give you credit for this one, Donna. This was your idea to do a podcast on this, and it's funny now looking back on books that I've read or the book that
Mhm.
I wrote, how I actually did this. So let's talk
Without
about it
realizing it. Like
without
without pointedly doing it, right?
without saying, "Oh, I'm going to plant a seed," but thinking back when I was writing, I was like, "Oh yeah, I needed to plant that seed." And we're going to talk why you have to be strategic with it. You have to be careful
Mhm.
with it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. I wanted to do this episode because, like you, I think I happened upon learning this lesson as a writer instead of thinking, oh, wow, that's a skill I want to try.
Mhm.
So now it's something that I implement into every novel that I write. And I think I become better at it, just like anything else. You more practice, you get better at it. So it's something that I wanted to share to our writers.
Okay, well, let's just get going. What does it mean planting seeds? It's the art of introducing details before they become important. Donna, with your first book,
Yeah.
how did you plant seeds that before they became obvious?
Well, interestingly enough, I did not know that I was planting seeds until my editor said to me, you started the book at the wrong place. You need to go back and create a whole first chapter. And I'm
Oh,
like, honestly, I started the book in three different places before she had even said that to me. So I was stymied and I didn't know what to do. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start at a place where their friendship is established and you could first start to see the cracks in the five main characters. And so I thought about things that occurred over the course of the book and started planting little seeds, including details that really wouldn't become important until later on in the story.
yeah.
And so that's something I'm very mindful of now. I almost think it's a really good idea to kind of write out that first chapter very loosely, but then come back and really revisit it to make sure that you are planting little seeds.
Yeah. Creating a sense of inevitability versus just it was a coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And what
100%.
about you? What did you like after, thinking about this idea? What are some of the seeds that you planted in your novel?
I planted seeds early on in my book that my character was very conscientious of her weight.
Mhm.
And I kept planting those little seeds because with me, I also did flashbacks to her childhood. And you
Mhm.
see just little comments about someone making a comment about her stomach that protruded a little bit when she was a toddler, or not toddler, but a child enough that she could remember that. I definitely planted little seeds about my main character, her love interest, Bradley, who he might have ended up with. So when you found out who he had married, it didn't come out of left field. Now, it might have been a shock, but I've had people say, oh, when I went back, I could see exactly, you were laying out exactly who he married by my character's reactions when she sees a picture of this woman, or by the fact that, I even laid down that she had strikingly blonde hair. And that comes back into another scene when you realize that character was sitting there with her daughter with this strikingly blonde hair. You realize, oh, could it be? I don't want to give it away for those who haven't read it, but I did lay those little seeds along the way. And some of those were intentional. I did intend on some of them, but when I go back and look at it now, some of them, I feel like I was just throwing things at the wall, and it actually, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. So should we talk about the difference between foreshadowing and planting seeds?
Absolutely. What is the difference between foreshadowing and planting?
So foreshadowing is hinting about something that's to come. And it's that moment that I think as a reader, I'm reading in a book and thinking, oh, this is going to come back later, or this is what they're hinting at. Whereas planting seeds is more subtle. It's including a detail that will not become fully realized or gain importance until later in the story. It's something very subtle that readers might glance over. And we're going to talk about that, like how to do this intentionally and not too heavy-handed.
Yeah. This was something that you and I discussed even before we started this. And planting, as you said, it's often physical. It's factual, and again, it's later used for the plot or for the motive or for the big reveal. But the one thing that we talked about, it has to be plausible in the original context. So so that was something that you and I did discuss. Let's talk about what kind of seeds you can plant. So there are character seeds. These are details that hint at future growth, flaws, or choices. Do you have an example of this, like with something a book that you like, or maybe one of your books, because you've written 3, well, now 4?
I'm thinking. Well, I think with Jules in All That Is Sacred, Jules's parents got divorced, and so she really has a fear of commitment moving forward. She's the only one of the 5 friends who didn't get married and keeps sabotaging her relationships. And so I think just the mere mention of her parents' divorce early on, which really isn't part of the story, is something that kind of makes sense later when we find out that she has commitment issues.
Yeah. I think like for a character seed, it's the details, their flaws, their choices. And one of my favorite books, and you and I've talked about this book, is called Gone Girl. And the author, how she kind of gave you some insights into Amy before you really knew, because it was, you didn't, at that point, you didn't know what happened to Amy. You kind of suspected that her husband had done something to her. But when you go back and reread it or relook at it, Amy had this amazing Amy backstory that shows her perfectionism and her drive to actually do some pretty dramatic actions. So something as small as that, like her parents wrote a whole story about, her as a child, the amazing Amy story. It really kind of hooked in that she was this perfectionist, that there was something deeper than just this wife that might have been, murdered by her husband. It's just like those little small kind of little insights. It wasn't right there. It wasn't, the author didn't just tell you. They just kind of, as we said, planted little seeds.
Yeah. Yeah. The next one is plot seeds, information that becomes important later. And one of the examples I'm going to draw upon for this is actually what I'm reading right now. The Other Boleyn Girl. If you're familiar with the story, it opens with a beheading of the main character, Mary's uncle. And she is shocked and she keeps thinking, King Henry is going to come out and he's going to pardon him. He would never be this cruel. He's just trying to teach him a lesson. And while that beheading seems very random, it doesn't really relate directly to the plot early on.
Mm-hmm.
The novel also ends with the beheading of Mary's own sister, Anne. And it very nicely parallels the first scene. And so that's an example of, using planting a seed as a plot device.
Well, yeah. And have you read the book, Remarkably Bright Creatures?
I have not.
Okay. So, or if you've seen the movie, I highly recommend it on Netflix. I went into that thinking, oh, this isn't going to be great, but it had Sally Field. I fell in love with the story. The author gave these little, what we're talking about, planting seeds with plot seeds. Objects kept being found in the tank or outside the tank because the octopus was able to escape, and he had a thing about objects, and he would keep them, and it becomes this humongous big plot twist at the end because of that. And going back and thinking, oh, she laid this all out. It was amazing to actually go back and be like, oh, now I know why these objects, which you think, why is this important? It becomes huge at the end.
Yeah. I love that.
So another thing you can build seeds would be world building seeds. Details about culture, rules, setting, and that becomes really crucial. And for me, in my book, the culture was very big about my world building seeds because I created this small little town. And so for me, it was, I would talk, I wrote about kind of the rituals and about the rules of a small town. And so I describe as, the church events, the sports teams, the local gossip early on. So that way later you can see how it shaped my character Penny and why she chose to move away and why she now finds being back kind of nostalgic.
Yeah. And the last one is emotional seeds. And I don't know, I'm thinking about an example from my second novel of Lies and Honey, where the book starts with Harper having a miscarriage. That happens in the very first scene. And you start to learn about her ideas surrounding motherhood and her emotions. And we really don't learn where those come from until the end of the book, when the reveal sort of happens. And then you realize like where all of that emotional baggage came from.
Yeah. So then let's talk about some rules. Okay. Yeah. The rule of setup and payoff. You need to be intentional about your seed planting. So talk about how you did that in one of your books, or maybe in an example of a book that you like, that every payoff must be traceable to something earlier. You just can't come out of left field and surprise the reader, because then they're going to feel cheated. They're going to be like, where did this come from?
Yeah. I think I want to talk more than an example. I want to talk about sort of a process that I use to do that. Maybe it's because I'm like in the throes of editing my fourth book that I'm thinking about editing. And once I'm done with a full draft, I read it through, make comments in the margins, as thoughts come into my head. And then I do like a very detailed outline. And I read my outline backwards. So something will happen and I'll try to trace in the earlier chapters, where did this idea originate? Like, where did I plant the seed for this? And I just kind of keep going backwards in that fashion and thinking about how could I plant a seed, or looking for evidence of me doing that, because you want to make sure that it all comes together at the end
Yeah.
and that you don't leave any loose ends.
And early emotional like investments make outcomes that matter.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
that's
it's an opportunity for the reader to be part of the process too, if you're not, being heavy handed or what have you.
yeah. So where do some writers get it wrong, Donna? Where do you think things go off the rails?
Well, I think sometimes things go off the rails when they introduce things randomly and don't really have a purpose for them later.
Mhm.
I mean, how many times have you read a book that you think something is going to come to fruition, and
Yeah.
the author just kind of leaves it and leaves you questioning at the very
Yeah.
end? I think that's one way it goes wrong. I also think if you're being too heavy-handed with the details that are leading up to a twist, or, some kind of reveal,
Yeah, the
I think,
over explaining motives.
yeah, just overdoing it. I think subtlety is always the key here.
Yeah. And avoid repeating the same line over and over again, just being too, as you said, being too heavy-handed.
Mhm.
And also hiding, if you hide your seed too late in the story, you
Right.
know, it readers also feel cheated. You got to give them some time, whether they realize it or not, to be kind of getting used to that idea. Don't just plant the seed in one chapter and reveal the next chapter. A slow burn actually has your reader more invested.
Yeah, it's kind of like, um, I don't know, what's another metaphor I'm looking for? Kind of plant, like putting blocks together,
Yeah.
and like seeing the whole structure come together at the end.
I read when we were researching this, I have it written down here. It says, don't invent a sudden expert skill at a reveal time, showing no training or no hint that this character had this ability.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're going to have your character have some amazing talent, you better start putting that in. Like my character in my book, she is a very good runner. And
Mhm.
I gave hints to this woman's running and her obsession with it, pretty much at the very beginning. So it wasn't shocking that she was going to be able to compete for a state title when she was in high school, if that makes sense. So you
Right.
don't want to just all of a sudden one chapter reveal something that was never hinted to or a seed planted before.
Yeah.
So what's a good rule of thumb is, as we said, make sure the seed is natural and
Mhm.
it has a purpose, and readers should barely notice it the first time. That's also a
Mm.
key. You don't want to hit them over the head with it. Be subtle, especially at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And try the backwards outline method, because that works very
Yeah.
nicely.
Yeah. We were also talking about the tips, as Donna said, read backwards. For every major reveal, ask yourself, how and where did I set this up? What are the clues? What are the emotional groundwork that supports this? And I love this because you wrote this. Did I earn this moment?
Yeah. Yeah. And those are honestly, practically, those are all the questions that I ask myself as I'm going through my backward outline.
Yeah. So you got me thinking, because I told you how much I love Gone Girl. And I
Mhm.
decided what it would be really interesting in those who like this book, recheck her diary excerpts, and
Mm.
notice the little small details to confirm if they were, if it was generally prepped and revealed, and it was. I think that's one of the most wonderful books ever. And then also with The Age of Innocence, you know how much I love that. Scan the early social scenes,
Mhm.
and look for the little micro choices that maybe justifies what Newland is going through, the predicament that he is in between the old world, the old world and what he wants Count to Oleska. So yeah, I really love the idea of rereading something, kind of going backwards.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice, because I'm just thinking now, um, I probably see this frequently as a teacher, because
Mhm.
I'm constantly reading and rereading. Like, I can tell you all the seeds that are planted in The Other Boleyn Girl. And it's because I've reread that novel so many times. But as a writer, I think you need to think intentionally about creating those seeds.
Yeah. Well, this was a fun episode, Donna. I'm so glad you came up
Yeah.
with that. And as I know that you're retired, but
Yeah.
you're always going to be our teacher at heart here. What is our do now?
So our do now is to look for effective seed planting, as Hope suggested. And we also have a free download with more examples and examples by different genres as well. And there's a writing exercise. So you can go to our website and you can download that for free. And that is our do now.
Awesome. And as always, guys, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and on Instagram, or go to our website at authorstalkingbookish.com. And before we say goodbye, Donna, what is our next episode?
Our next episode, we are going to be interviewing thriller writer Maggie Giles, who had her first debut the year that we did as well. We all debuted right around the same time. So I'm anxious to have a conversation with her.
Well, that is so exciting. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.